Adies was a poor widow in Umora village. She lived in a small mud house with cracks in the walls that let the cold December harmattan wind blow through at night. The roof leaked when the rains came, and she would place clay balls on the floor to catch the water dripping from above. She did not have much money, and she was always looking for ways to feed herself and her 3 children. Her husband died 3 years ago during the farming season, when a tree fell on him in the forest. Since then, she had been alone in her struggles. The December harmattan was always the hardest time for Adais. The cold, dusty wind made her children cough at night, and she had to cover them with thin wrappers that were torn and old. Food was scarce in December because the farms were dry and the yams were finished. She would wake up every morning before the cock crowed and go to set traps for bush rats and grass cutters in the forest, so she could have something to cook for her children. Adaize's children were alive. Obi was her eldest son, 10 years old with bright eyes and a curious mind. Chinwe was her daughter, 8 years old and very quiet. Emeka was the youngest, only 5 years old, and he cried often because he was always hungry. Every night, Adaise would lie on a worn mat and pray to our ancestors to help her find a way to feed her children properly. One cold December morning, before the sun rose and while the harmattan dust still filled the air, Adaise tied her old wrapper around her waist and picked up her small basket. She was going to check her traps in the forest behind the village. The December wind was biting cold, and she wrapped a cloth around her shoulders as she walked on the narrow bush path. The dry leaves crunched under her feet, and the morning birds were just beginning to sing their songs. Adaise liked to check her traps very early because if she went late, other animals might eat whatever she caught, or worse, thieves might steal from her traps. She walked quickly, her breath coming out like small clouds of smoke in the cold air. The harmattan dust made everything look grey and lifeless. The trees were bare, and the grass was brown and dry. As Adaise walked deeper into the forest, she heard voices coming from near the big iroko tree that stood at the edge of the sacred grove. She stopped walking and hid behind a thick bush, listening carefully. She recognized the voices. They belonged to Mazi Okoro and his 2 sons, the village hunters who were known for their cruelty to animals and their love of money. "Ah, we have caught something very special this December," Mazi Okoro said, his voice filled with excitement and greed. "Papa, are you sure it is real? I have never seen anything like this before." One of his sons replied, fear in his voice. "Of course it is real, you foolish boy. This is the December mermaid that the elders talk about. She comes out of the river every December when the harmattan is strongest to feed on animal blood. They say her blood and her bones can make powerful medicine. We will sell her to the chief priest in Enugu. He will pay us plenty money for this one," Mazi Okoro said, laughing wickedly. Adaise's heart started beating fast. December mermaid? Feed on animal blood? She had heard stories from the elders about a creature that lived in the river and came out during December to hunt, but she always thought they were just stories to scare children. Her hands began to shake as she held her basket tightly. "But Papa, they say the December mermaid is very dangerous. They say she has sharp teeth like a crocodile and she can kill a man with one bite," the other son said nervously. "That is why we use the iron chains to tie her. She cannot break iron chains. And we covered her mouth with cloth so she cannot bite us. Tomorrow at dawn, we will take her to Enugu before the villagers wake up. No one must know about this," Mazi Okoro said firmly. Adaise pressed herself closer to the bush, trying not to make any sound. Her mind was racing. A mermaid, chained to a tree. She wanted to turn around and run back home, but something made her stay. She needed to see this creature with her own eyes. The hunters continued talking, their voices becoming quieter as they moved away from the iroko tree. "We will come back before sunrise to take her. Let us go home and prepare the cart," Mazi Okoro said. Adaise waited until she could no longer hear their footsteps before she slowly came out from behind the bush. Her legs were shaking, and her heart was pounding like a drum. She looked in the direction of the iroko tree and saw something that made her blood run cold. There, deep in the shadows under the massive tree, she could see the shape of something moving. Adaisy's curiosity was stronger than her fear. She moved slowly towards the iroko tree, stepping carefully on the dry leaves to avoid making noise. As she got closer, she heard a soft groaning sound, like someone in great pain. The harmattan wind blew dust into her eyes, and she rubbed them quickly, trying to see clearly. When she reached the tree, she placed her pot gently on the ground and looked around the thick trunk. What she saw made her freeze completely. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes widened in shock and terror. There, chained to the iroko tree with thick iron chains, was a woman. But this was not an ordinary woman. She had long black hair that fell to her waist, wet and tangled with leaves and dirt. Her skin was pale, almost grey in color, and it had strange silver markings that looked like fish scales running down her arms and neck. Her eyes were the color of gold, shining even in the dim morning light, and they were filled with pain and fear. But what terrified Adai's most was the woman's mouth. A dirty cloth was tied around it, but Adais could see the edges of sharp teeth, pointed like a shark's teeth, pressing against the cloth. And when Adais looked down, her legs nearly gave way beneath her. Instead of legs, the woman had a long, powerful tail covered in dark green and silver scales. The tail was as thick as a man's body, and it ended in a wide fin that moved weakly against the ground. The creature's body was covered in cuts and bruises. The iron chains had cut into her wrists and around her tail, and there was dried blood on the ground around her. Her breathing was heavy and labored, and her golden eyes were half closed in exhaustion. Daisy took a step backward, her hand covering her mouth to stop herself from screaming. This was real. The December mermaid was real, and she was right in front of her, chained like an animal, suffering and weak. The mermaid's golden eyes suddenly opened fully and looked directly at Adais. Adais felt her whole body go cold. Those eyes were not the eyes of a monster. They were the eyes of someone who was suffering, someone who was begging for help. Tears were rolling down the mermaid's face, making clean lines through the dirt and blood on her cheeks. The mermaid tried to speak, but the cloth around her mouth muffled her words. She lifted her chained hand weakly towards Adais, her fingers reaching out desperately. Adais could see that the mermaid's fingernails were long and sharp, almost like claws, but the hand was shaking with weakness. Adaisy's heart was pounding so hard she thought it would burst from her chest. Every story she had ever heard about mermaids came rushing into her mind. Mermaids who dragged fishermen into the water, mermaids who cursed entire villages, mermaids who fed on human flesh during the full moon. But looking at this creature now, chained and bleeding and crying, Adaisy could not see a monster. She saw someone who needed help. Please, help me. The mermaid's muffled voice came through the cloth, weak and desperate. Adais looked around quickly to make sure no one was watching. The forest was empty and quiet except for the sound of the harmattan wind blowing through the dry leaves. She took one step closer to the mermaid, then another, her whole body trembling with fear and confusion. Adais knelt down slowly in front of the mermaid, keeping some distance between them. The mermaid's golden eyes followed her every movement, tears continuing to flow down her face. Adais reached out with shaking hands and carefully pulled the dirty cloth away from the mermaid's mouth. The mermaid gasped for air, her chest heaving as she breathed deeply. Her mouth was indeed filled with sharp, pointed teeth, but they were not biting or snapping. The mermaid simply breathed, her eyes closing briefly in relief at being able to breathe properly again. "Thank you," the mermaid whispered, her voice hoarse and weak. "Thank you." Adaisy's hand was still shaking. Are you really a mermaid?" she asked quietly, even though she already knew the answer. The mermaid nodded slowly, wincing in pain from the movement. Yes, I am Miri, daughter of the river. I come to land every December when the harmattan dries the shallow waters. I hunt only animals, bush rats, grass cutters, monkeys. I need their blood to survive the dry season when the fish in the river become scarce. I have never harmed a human. Never. Adaze looked at the mermaid's sharp teeth and claws. But you look so dangerous. Your teeth, your claws. I am a hunter, yes, Mamiri said, tears still flowing. I hunt to survive, just like you set traps for bush meat to feed your children. I am not evil. I am not a monster. I only want to live. Adaze felt her heart soften. She understood hunger. She understood the desperation of needing to feed yourself and having no other choice. She looked at the chains cutting into Miri's wrists and tail, at the blood and bruises covering her body. The hunters. They said they will sell you to a chief priest. They said your blood and bones can make powerful medicine. Adaeze said softly. Mamiri's eyes filled with fresh terror. They will kill me. They will cut me into pieces while I am still alive and sell my parts to the highest bidder. I have seen what humans do to creatures they do not understand. Please, please help me. I am begging you. Adaze's mind was racing. She thought about her own struggles, her own children at home who were hungry every day. She thought about the risks of helping this creature. If the hunters found out, they might hurt her or her children. If the villagers discovered she had helped the December mermaid escape, they might call her a witch and drive her from the village. But then she looked into Miri's golden eyes again and saw her own pain reflected there. She saw a mother's desperation, a survivor's fear, a living being's will to stay alive. I have not eaten in 3 days, Mamiri whispered, her voice breaking. The chains. I cannot reach the water. I cannot hunt. I am so weak. If you do not help me, I will die here, even before they come to take me. Adaeze swallowed hard. Why should I trust you? How do I know you will not attack me or my village once you are free? Mamiri looked directly into Adaeze's eyes. Because I give you my word. We river people do not break our promises. I have lived near your village for 20 December seasons, hunting quietly in the forest, harming no one. I only want to return to my river and survive until the rains come again. Suddenly, Adaze heard voices in the distance, men's voices. The hunters were returning, and the sun was beginning to rise. They are coming back, Miri whispered, her eyes wide with panic. Please, please decide now. Will you help me, or will you leave me to die? Adaze's breathing became fast and heavy. Her hands were sweating despite the cold harmattan wind. She looked at the chains, then at the approaching sunrise, then back at Miri's desperate face. In that moment, Adaze remembered her own husband's death. She remembered how no one in the village had helped her when she was starving. She remembered begging for help and being turned away. She remembered the feeling of being alone and helpless. I will help you, Adaze whispered, her voice trembling but firm. Adaze's fingers moved quickly to the chains around Miri's wrists, but they were locked with a heavy padlock. Her heart sank. She could not break iron chains with her bare hands. The key, Miri gasped. One of the hunters. The fat one. He has it on a string around his neck. Adaze's eyes widened. I cannot take it from him. That is impossible. The voices of the hunters were getting closer. Adaze could hear Mazi Okoro talking loudly about how much money they would get for the mermaid. She had only minutes, maybe seconds, before they would arrive at the tree. Please, Mimiri begged, her voice desperate. At least remove the chains from my tail. They are only wrapped and locked at my wrists. If you can free my tail, I can drag myself to the river even with my hands chained. Adaze looked at the chains wrapped around Miri's powerful tail. They were thick and heavy, but they were not welded. They were only wrapped around and secured by the main lock at Miri's wrist. With shaking hands, Adaze began to unwrap the chain from around the tail. The chain was so heavy. Adaze's fingers hurt as she pulled at it, unwinding it loop by loop. Sweat poured down her face despite the cold morning air. The harmattan dust got into her eyes and mouth, but she did not stop. She could hear footsteps now, very close. The hunters were less than a minute away. "Faster, please faster," Miri whispered urgently, her golden eyes darting towards the sound of approaching footsteps. Adaze pulled the last loop of chain free from Miri's tail. The heavy chain fell to the ground with a loud clank. Miri's tail immediately began to move more freely, though her wrists were still chained to the tree. "Hide! They are coming," Miri hissed. Adaze grabbed her basket and dove behind a thick bush, just as Mazi Okoro and his sons appeared through the trees. Her heart was beating so fast she thought they would hear it. She pressed herself flat against the ground, her face in the dirt, barely breathing. "Hey, what is this?" Mazi Okoro's voice was angry and confused. "The chains on her tail are removed. Who has been here?" "Papa, look! Fresh footprints in the dust. Someone was here," one of the sons shouted. Adaze's blood ran cold. She had forgotten about the footprints. The harmattan dust showed every footprint clearly. "Search the area. Someone is helping this creature. Find them," Mazi Okoro roared. Adaze heard the hunters spreading out, their boots crunching on the dry leaves. They were searching the bushes, looking for whoever had freed the mermaid's tail. She tried to make herself smaller, pressing deeper into the shadows behind the bush. Her basket was beside her, and she prayed they would not see it. Suddenly, a loud sound erupted from the direction of the village. It was the village bell, ringing urgently. Gong, gong, gong. "Papa, that is the alarm bell. Something is happening in the village," one of the sons shouted. "It must be a fire. We have to go." The other son said urgently. Mazi Okoro cursed loudly. "We will come back after we see what is happening. Guard the creature." "No, wait. Both of you come with me. We need every man if there is a fire. This creature is not going anywhere with her hands still chained." The three hunters ran back towards the village, their footsteps fading quickly into the distance. Adaze stayed hidden for a few more seconds, making sure they were truly gone. Then she jumped up and ran back to Miri. "That bell," Miri gasped. "That was not an accident. The forest spirits sent help. Quick, you must help me reach the river before they return." Adaze looked at Miri's tail, now free from chains, and at her chained wrists, still locked to the tree. "But your hands." "I can drag myself even with chained hands if you help me. The river is not far. Please." Adaze made a decision. She bent down and wrapped her arms around Miri's waist from behind. Miri was heavy, much heavier than she looked. The mermaid's tail alone must have weighed as much as a large man. Adaze pulled with all her strength, her feet sliding in the dust, her muscles screaming with effort. "Wait," Miri said through gritted teeth. She turned her body and used her powerful tail to push against the ground. With Adaze pulling and Miri pushing, they moved forward inch by inch. The chains on Miri's wrists suddenly snapped tight, pulling her back. She cried out in pain. "The tree! We must break the chain from the tree," Adaze said desperately. Miri wrapped her tail around the base of the iroko tree and pulled with all her remaining strength, while Adaze pulled at the chains from the other direction. The old tree's roots groaned. Sweat and tears mixed on both their faces. The chain dug deeper into Miri's bleeding wrists, but she did not stop. Crack! The chain yanked free, pulling a piece of wood from the tree with it. Miri fell backward, gasping, the chain still on her wrists but no longer attached to the tree. "Now, we must go now," Miri urged. Adais helped Mamiri turn towards the direction of the river. They moved together, Adais supporting Mamiri's upper body while Mamiri used her powerful tail to drag them forward. Every few meters, they had to stop because Adais's arms were giving out or because Mamiri was too exhausted to continue. The forest seemed to go on forever. Adais's wrapper was soaked with sweat. Her arms were shaking uncontrollably. Her back felt like it was breaking, but she did not stop. Mamiri was groaning with pain, her wrists bleeding heavily from the chains, her tail leaving a trail of blood and scales in the dust. Just a little more, Mamiri gasped. I can smell the water. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, they broke through the last line of trees. There, ahead of them, was the river. The morning sun was now fully risen, making the water shine like silver. The harmattan wind blew across the river's surface, creating small ripples. But Adais suddenly stopped. Wait, if I take you to the river now, the hunters will know someone helped you escape. They will search every house. They will question everyone. I need to hide you first until it is safe. Mamiri looked at her with surprise. Hide me? Where? My house. It is at the edge of the village, near the forest path. I can keep you safe there until nightfall, then bring you to the river when no one is watching. But your family, your children, they will be frightened, Mamiri said, though her eyes showed hope. I will explain to them. Please, if the hunters see you now, they will catch you again, and this time they will kill you immediately. Mamiri nodded weakly. I trust you. Getting Mamiri to Adais's house was even harder than reaching the river. They had to go through the back paths, avoiding the main village routes. Adais had to keep stopping to check if anyone was coming. Her compound was small, and her house was barely big enough for her family, but it was hidden behind thick bushes and an old mango tree. When they finally reached her house, Adaisi pushed the wooden door open carefully. Her 3 children were still asleep on their mats, curled together for warmth in the cold harmattan morning. Adaisi helped Miri inside and laid her gently on the floor in the corner, behind her cooking pots and bags of dried corn. Mimiri was breathing heavily, her face pale with exhaustion and pain. The chains were still on her wrists, and blood dripped slowly onto the dirt floor. I will bring water, Adais whispered. She went outside quickly and drew water from her clay pot. When she returned, she tore a piece of cloth from her old wrapper and dipped it in the water. Gently, she cleaned the blood and dirt from Momiri's wrists, where the chains had cut deep into her skin. Momiri flinched but did not cry out. You are kind, she whispered. Very kind. Rest now, Adaise said softly. I will. Knock! 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 The loud banging on the door made both of them jump. Adaise's heart leapt into her throat. Mamiri's golden eyes widened in terror. Who is there? Adaise called out, trying to keep her voice steady. Adaise, open this door now. It is Mama Eagle. Adaise's heart sank. Mama Eagle was the biggest gossip in the entire village. She had a nose for other people's business and a mouth that never stopped talking. If anyone could discover a secret, it was Mama Eagle. Adais quickly grabbed a large basket and placed it in front of Miri, hiding her from view. She signaled to Miri to stay absolutely silent, then went to the door. She opened it just a crack, blocking the entrance with her body. Mama Eagle, good morning, Adais said, forcing a smile. What brings you to my house so early? Mama Eagle was a large woman with sharp eyes and a wrapper tied tightly around her big waist. She pushed against the door, trying to see inside. Adais, we heard the alarm bell this morning. There was a fire near Mazi Okoro's house. Everyone is at the village square. Why are you not there? Oh, a fire? I did not hear the bell. I was in the back garden checking my vegetables. Adais lied, her heart pounding. Mama Eagle's eyes narrowed suspiciously. She leaned to the left, trying to look past Adaze into the house. You did not hear the bell? Everyone in 3 villages heard that bell. Are you sick? No, I am fine. I was just very focused on my garden. Thank you for telling me. I will come to the square now, Adaze said, trying to close the door. But Mama Eagle pushed harder against the door, her neck stretching like a hen trying to see inside. What are you hiding in there, Adaze? Why are you blocking the door like this? Hiding. I am not hiding anything, Mama Eagle. Why would I hide something? Then let me inside. I need to rest my feet. I have been walking all morning telling people about the fire, Mama Eagle said, pushing more forcefully. Adaze pushed back, her feet sliding on the ground. Mama Eagle, my house is very dirty. I have not swept this morning. I am embarrassed for you to see it like this. Dirty? Your house is always dirty, Adaze. That has never stopped me from visiting before. What is different today? Mama Eagle's voice became louder and more suspicious. Inside the house, Adaze could hear one of her children stirring. No, she thought desperately. If the children woke up and saw Mamiri, they would scream and Mama Eagle would hear everything. Mama Eagle, please. I promise I will come to the village square very soon, but right now I need to use the bathroom. My stomach is very upset, Adaze said, clutching her stomach and making a pained face. Mama Eagle stepped back slightly, her nose wrinkling. Eh? Your stomach? Well, that is different. But Adaze, I want to tell you something important. Mazi Okoro is saying that someone helped his prisoner escape this morning. He is going from house to house with his sons, searching everywhere. They are very angry. Adaze felt her blood run cold, but she kept her face calm. Prisoner? What prisoner? They say they caught the December mermaid. You know, the creature that feeds on animal blood during harmattan. They had it chained to the iroko tree, but someone freed it and now it is missing. Mazi Okoro is saying, whoever helped the creature will be punished severely. That is terrible, Adaze said, her voice shaking only slightly. But what does this have to do with me? Mama Eagle leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. They found woman's footprints near the tree. They think a woman from our village helped the creature. Adaze, where were you this morning? I told you. I was in my back garden. I did not go near the iroko tree. I did not even know about the mermaid, Adaze said firmly. Mama Eagle studied her face for a long moment. Adaze could feel sweat running down her back, but she held Mama Eagle's gaze without looking away. Finally, Mama Eagle nodded slowly. Okay, but Adaze, be careful. Mazi Okoro is offering a reward to anyone who has information about who helped the creature. 3 live chickens and a bag of rice. Many people in the village will be watching everyone else now, hoping to get that reward. Thank you for warning me, Mama Eagle. I will be careful, Adaze said. Mama Eagle turned to leave but stopped and looked back. Adaze, one more thing. Your door. There is blood on the bottom of your door frame. Did you slaughter a chicken this morning? Adaze looked down and her heart nearly stopped. There was indeed blood. It must have dripped from Mimiri's wounds when they entered the house. Her mind raced for an explanation. Oh, yes, I slaughtered a chicken very early this morning. For my children. They have been coughing from the harmattan cold, and I wanted to make them pepper soup, Adaze said quickly. Mama Eagle raised her eyebrows. You slaughtered a chicken? You who can barely afford to buy salt? When did you get a chicken? My neighbor gave it to me yesterday. An old sick chicken that would have died anyway. So I slaughtered it this morning before it died on its own, Adaze explained, her hands twisting her wrapper nervously. Mama Eagle looked at her suspiciously but finally shrugged. Well, if you say so. Remember what I told you about Mazi Okoro. He is very serious about finding whoever helped that creature. I will remember. Thank you, Mama Eagle. As soon as Mama Eagle was out of sight, Daisy shut the door quickly and leaned against it, her chest heaving. She looked at Mamiri, who was still hidden behind the basket, her golden eyes wide with fear. Before Adaze could say anything, she heard a small gasp behind her. She turned around slowly and saw her eldest son, Obi, standing near a sleeping mat. His eyes were wide as full moons, his mouth hanging open, staring at the corner where Mamiri was partially visible behind the basket. Mama. What is that? Obi whispered, his voice trembling. Adaeze's heart dropped into her stomach. She quickly moved to Obi and knelt down in front of him, placing her hands on his thin shoulders. Obi, my son, please do not be afraid, she whispered urgently. But Obi was not listening. He was staring past her at Miri, his whole body shaking. Mama, it has a tail. It has a fish tail and teeth like a shark. Mama, is it going to eat us? Miri slowly pulled the basket aside and looked at Obi. The little boy took a step backward, his breath coming in short gasps. I will not hurt you, Mamiri said softly, her voice gentle despite her sharp teeth. I promise you, little one, I will not hurt anyone in this house. It talks, Mama, the fish woman talks, Obi cried, his voice rising. Shh, Obi, please, you must be quiet, Daisy said desperately, covering his mouth with her hand. If people hear you, we will all be in great danger. Obi's eyes filled with tears. He was trying to process what he was seeing, his child's mind struggling to understand the impossible creature in his home. Daisy pulled Obi into a tight hug and whispered in his ear. Obi, listen to me very carefully. This creature's name is Miri. She is not evil. She is not here to hurt us. The hunters caught her and were going to kill her, and Mama helped her escape. Do you understand? She needs our help. But the elders say mermaids are dangerous. They say mermaids drag fishermen into the water and eat them. Obi whimpered against his mother's shoulder. Mamiri spoke again, her voice sad. The elders tell stories to explain things they do not understand. I have never harmed a human. I hunt only animals in the forest during December when the river has no fish. I am a mother, just like your mama, trying to survive. Obi peeked out from his mother's embrace and looked at Miri again. His fear was slowly being replaced by curiosity. You are a mother. Where are your children? Mimiri's golden eyes filled with tears. I have 3 daughters waiting for me in the deep river caves. They are hungry. I could not bring them food for 3 days because I was chained to that tree. They must be so frightened. Obi's face softened. He understood what it meant to be hungry. He understood what it meant to wait for a mother to bring food. He looked up at his own mother. Mama, are her children going to die if she does not go back to them? Yes, my son. That is why we must help her return to the river safely, Daisy said, stroking his hair. At that moment, Chinwe and Emeka woke up. Emeka saw Miri and immediately burst into loud tears. Monster! Monster in our house, he wailed. Chinwe, more quiet than her brothers, simply stared with wide eyes, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound coming out. Adiz rushed to calm them both, gathering all 3 children into her arms. Listen to me, all of you. This is very important. That woman is not a monster. Her name is Mamiri, and she needs our help. Bad men want to kill her, and we are hiding her. Until tonight, when Mama can take her back to the river. But you must promise me on your father's grave, that you will not tell anyone. Not your friends, not Mama Eagle, not anyone. Do you understand? The children looked at each other, then at Miri, then back at their mother. Slowly, one by one, they nodded. Good children, Adaze whispered, kissing each of their foreheads. Now, Mama needs you to act normal today. Go outside and play like every other day. If anyone asks where Mama is, tell them Mama is not feeling well and is resting inside. Can you do that for Mama? Yes, Mama, they said together, though their eyes kept drifting back to Mamiri's tale. Suddenly, there was another loud knock on the door, but this time it was not the soft knock of a nosy neighbor. This was hard, aggressive pounding. Bam, bam, bam. Open this door. This is Mazi Okoro. We are searching all houses in the village. A man's angry voice shouted. Adaze's blood turned to ice. The children gasped. Amiri tried to push herself further into the corner, but there was nowhere to hide. Her silver-scaled tail was too large, too obvious. Mama, what do we do? Obi whispered, his face pale with terror. Adaze looked around desperately. The house was small, just one room with a small cooking area. There was nowhere to hide Mary. The hunters would see her the moment they entered. Bam, bam, bam. I said, open this door now, or we will break it down. Adaze made a quick decision. She grabbed her biggest wrapper, the one she used for going to the farm, and threw it over Miri, covering her completely from head to tail. Mamiri lay very still under the wrapper, holding her breath. Obi, Chinwe, Emeka, lie down on top of the wrapper. Pretend you are sleeping. Quickly, Adaze commanded. The three children immediately lay down on top of the large wrapper, curling their bodies to cover as much of Miri as possible. They closed their eyes and tried to breathe normally, though their hearts were pounding. Adaze wiped the sweat from her face, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Mazi Okoro stood there with his two sons behind him. They all carried machetes and looked angry and suspicious. Mazi Okoro's small eyes scanned Adaze from head to toe. Good morning, Mazi Okoro, Adaze said, keeping her voice steady. What is this about searching houses? Where were you this morning before sunrise? Mazi Okoro demanded, not bothering with greetings. I was here, in my house, with my children. Why do you ask? The December mermaid we captured has escaped. Someone helped her. A woman's footprints were found at the iroko tree. We are searching every house where a woman lives alone, Mazi Okoro said, pushing past Adaze into the small house. Please, Mazi Okoro, you are frightening my children, Adaze protested. But it was useless. Mazi Okoro's eyes swept across the small room. He looked at the clay pots, at the bags of corn, at the children lying on the floor. His nose wrinkled. Why are your children sleeping so late? The sun is already high, he asked suspiciously. They are sick. The harmattan cold has given them fever. I let them rest, Adaze said quickly. One of Mazi Okoro's sons walked around the room, looking in every corner. He kicked at the bags of corn, looked behind the water pot, checked the cooking area. Adaze held her breath. What is that wrapper your children are lying on? That is your farm wrapper. Why would you put children on your dirty farm wrapper? Mazi Okoro asked, his eyes narrowing. I used it to cover them because they were cold. All our other wrappers are torn. It was the only one thick enough to keep them warm, Adaze said, her hand shaking behind her back. Mazi Okoro walked closer to the children. He stood right above them, looking down. Under the wrapper, Mamiri was holding her breath, her body completely still. If the children moved even slightly, her tail might be revealed. Tell your children to get up. I want to see what is under that wrapper, Mazi Okoro commanded. No, please. They are very sick. If you wake them now, they might start crying and coughing. Please, Mazi Okoro, have mercy, Adaze begged, stepping between him and the children. Move aside, Adaze. I said I want to see what is under that wrapper. His voice was getting louder, angrier. Just then, Emeka, the youngest, began to cough. a real heavy cough from the harmattan dust in his lungs. He coughed and coughed, his small body shaking. It was perfect timing. You see, they are very sick, Adaeze said, rushing to Emeka and patting his back. Please, Mazi Okoro, if you disturb them more, they will get worse. Mazi Okoro watched Emeka coughing, his face showing uncertainty. His own son pulled at his arm. Papa, we have many more houses to search. This woman is too poor to be hiding anything valuable. Let us go. Mazi Okoro looked around the room one more time. His eyes lingered on the wrapper covering the children, on the blood still visible at the doorframe, on Adaeze's sweating face. But finally, he turned toward the door. If I find out you are lying to me, Adaeze, you will regret it, he said coldly. Then he and his sons left. Adaeze stood frozen until she heard their footsteps fade away completely. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. The children jumped up from the wrapper, and Miri threw it off, gasping for air. Her golden eyes were wide with fear. That was too close, Miri whispered. Too close. Mama, you were so brave, Obi said, hugging his mother tightly. Adaeze held all three children close, tears streaming down her face. We are not safe yet. Mazi Okoro suspects something. We must be even more careful now. All day, Adaeze made our children play outside, while she stayed inside with Miri, giving her water and cleaning her wounds. She used old cloth to bandage the cuts on Miri's wrists, where the chains had dug deep. Miri was very weak, from not eating for 3 days. Do you really drink blood? Little Chinwe asked shyly, peeping into the house from the doorway. Mamiri smiled weakly. Yes, little one, but only from animals I hunt, never from humans. My people, the river people, we are different from you. We need blood to survive during the dry season, but we are not evil. We only take what we need to live. Are you in pain? Chinwe asked, her voice full of concern. Yes, but your mother's kindness has given me hope. That is stronger than pain, Miri said softly. As evening approached and the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and red, Adaeze knew it was almost time. She would have to take Miri back to the river under cover of darkness. When the last light disappeared from the sky and the full moon rose over the village, Adaeze wrapped Miri again in the large farm wrapper. Miri was still very weak, but she had rested throughout the day and could move more easily now. Children, lock the door from inside. Do not open it for anyone except Mama. I will be back before the cock crows, Adaeze instructed. Mama, please be careful, Obi said, his eyes full of worry. I will, my son, I will. Adaeze helped Miri outside. The December night was cold and the harmattan dust made everything look ghostly in the moonlight. The stars were very bright, scattered across the black sky like silver seeds. Can you use your tail to help us move? Adaeze whispered. Yes, I am stronger now, Miri replied. Together they moved through the darkness, avoiding the main paths, keeping to the shadows. Miri used her powerful tail to push them forward, while Adaeze supported her upper body. Every sound made them freeze. A dog barking, a door closing, voices in the distance. The journey took a long time. Adaeze's arms were aching and her back was on fire with pain, but she did not stop. She could not stop. She had come too far to give up now. Finally, they reached the riverbank. The water looked black in the moonlight, deep and mysterious. Adaeze helped Miri to the water's edge and gently lowered her down. Miri's tail touched the water and immediately she seemed to come alive. Her scales began to shine, reflecting the moonlight. Color returned to her face. The water was calling her home. Adaeze, Mimiri said, turning to look at her rescuer. You have given me my life back. You have saved my children. I will never forget this. Tears filled Adaeze's eyes. I only did what anyone with a good heart should do. Go now. Go to your children. They are waiting for you. The hunters will look for you. They will want revenge, Mamiri said, her golden eyes full of concern. I know, but I will face whatever comes. At least I will know I did the right thing, Adaeze said softly. Mamiri reached up and touched Adaeze's face gently with her webbed hand. Humans will never understand my kind. They will always fear us. But you saw beyond the teeth and the tail. You saw a living being who wanted to survive. You are special as Adaeze. Be safe, Miri. Hunt carefully. And maybe do not come to this village next December. It is too dangerous now, Adaeze said. Mimiri smiled, showing her sharp teeth, but the smile was sad. Perhaps you are right. Thank you, Adaeze. Thank you for everything. With those words, Mamiri slipped into the water. Her tail rose above the surface once, twice, like a final goodbye, and then she was gone. The water settled, becoming calm and black again, as if the mermaid had never been there. Adaeze stood by the river for a long time, looking at the place where Miri had disappeared. The December wind blew cold against her skin. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered a prayer to her ancestors to keep Miri and her children safe. Then she turned and walked back home, her heart heavy but peaceful. She had risked everything. Her safety, her children's safety, her place in the village, for a creature that most people would have killed without hesitation. But she had no regrets. When she reached her house, her children were waiting by the door, unable to sleep until they knew she was safe. They hugged her tightly, and together they went inside and locked the door. Did she make it to the water, Mama? Obi asked. Yes, my son. She is home now with her children, Adaeze said, smiling through her tears. 7 days passed. The village slowly forgot about the escaped mermaid. Mazi Okoro continued searching for a few days, but he never found any proof of who had helped the creature escape. Eventually, he gave up and went back to his normal hunting. Mama Ego continued to gossip about the incident, making up new stories every day about what might have happened to the December mermaid. Some said it died in the forest. Some said it turned into a bird and flew away. Some said it was never real to begin with. Adaeze continued our daily struggles, setting traps for bushmeat, trying to feed our hungry children. Life went on as it always had. Difficult, exhausting, but bearable. One night, exactly 7 days after she had helped Miri escape, Adaeze woke up suddenly. She did not know why. The moon was full and bright, shining through the cracks in her walls. She felt a strange pull, as if something was calling her outside. She wrapped her cloth around herself and stepped outside quietly, careful not to wake her children. The December night was cold and silent. The harmattan dust hung in the air like mist. Adaeze walked around the side of her house to the back, and what she saw made her stop breathing. There, arranged in a neat line near her door, were 3 large clay pots. They were beautiful pots, the kind that cost more money than Adaeze earned in a whole year. They were sealed with beeswax and palm leaves. Adaeze looked around quickly, but there was no one. The village was silent and sleeping. She knelt down and touched the first pot. It was heavy, very heavy. With shaking hands, she broke the seal on the first pot and looked inside. Her eyes widened in shock and disbelief. The pot was filled to the brim with dried fish, not ordinary fish, but the special silver river fish that were rarely caught and sold for high prices in the city market. She opened the second pot. This one was filled with oyster shells, but they were not empty shells. Each shell contained a perfect pearl, white and glowing in the moonlight. There must have been hundreds of pearls. The third pot made Adaeze's heart stop completely. It was filled with gold ornaments, bracelets, anklets, rings, all made from pure gold that must have been recovered from ancient river kingdoms long ago. Adaze sat back on her heels, her mind spinning. This was impossible. This was more wealth than she had ever imagined. Where did it come from? Who left it here? But in her heart, she knew. She knew exactly who had left these gifts. Mary, she whispered into the night. Thank you. As if in answer, the river in the distance seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, and Adaze thought she heard a soft splashing sound, like a tail moving in water. She carefully carried the 3 pots inside her house, one by one. They were so heavy she had to rest between each trip. When all 3 were safely inside, she sat on her mat and stared at them, tears rolling down her cheeks. She did not sleep that night. She could only sit and wonder at the miracle that had happened. The December mermaid had kept her promise. She had remembered. She had come back to repay the kindness. Adaze did not tell anyone about the pots immediately. She waited several days, being very careful. Then slowly she began to sell the dried fish in the market, traveling to neighboring villages so no one would suspect where she got so many fish. With the money from the fish, she bought new wrappers for herself and her children. She fixed the roof of her house. She bought enough food to fill her storage room. Then, one by one, she sold the pearls to a traveling merchant, getting good prices because they were so rare and perfect. She bought a piece of land near the village and began to farm properly. She bought 3 goats and some chickens. The gold ornaments she kept hidden, selling only small pieces when she needed large amounts of money, like when Obi needed to go to school, or when Emeka fell sick and needed expensive medicine. Within a few months, Adaze was no longer the poorest woman in the village. She had become comfortable, respected. People noticed the change, but when they asked how she became successful, she would only smile mysteriously and say, hard work and God's blessing. Mama Ego, being Mama Ego, spread rumors that Adaze must have stolen something or done juju magic. But no one could prove anything, and gradually the gossip died down. Adaze taught her children to always help those in need, even if those in need looked different or frightening. She told them stories about kindness and courage, though she never told anyone else about Miri. Every December, when the harmattan winds blew cold and strong, Adaze would go to the river at night and stand by the water. She would whisper a greeting to Mamiri and pray for her safety. And sometimes, just sometimes, she would see a shimmer in the water, a flash of silver scales in the moonlight, and she would know that Miri was still alive, still hunting, still feeding her children. Years passed. Adaze's children grew up healthy and strong. Obi became a teacher in the village school. Chinwe became a successful trader. Emeka became a fisherman, and he always said he had a special connection with the river, as if something in the water protected him and blessed his nets. Adaze grew old, but she was happy. She had become one of the most respected women in the village, known for her generosity and wisdom. When people came to her for advice, she would often say, "Do not judge others by their appearance. Look at their hearts. The most frightening-looking creature might have the purest soul." One December evening, many years later, when Adaze was very old and weak, she went to the river one last time. She sat on the bank, her old bones aching from the cold harmattan wind, and looked at the water. "Mamiri," she whispered, "if you can hear me, I want you to know that helping you was the best decision I ever made. You changed my life. You saved my children. Thank you, my friend." The water rippled gently, though there was no wind, and there, in the moonlight, Adaze saw something rise from the water, a figure with long dark hair and golden eyes, followed by 3 smaller figures, younger mermaids with silver tails. Mamiri and her daughters. They did not come onto land. They simply floated in the water, looking at Adaze with gratitude and love. Mamiri raised one webbed hand in farewell, and Adaze raised her old, wrinkled hand in return. Then they sank back into the water and were gone. Daisy smiled, her old eyes full of tears. She stood up slowly and walked back to her nice house, her warm bed, her successful children. And in her heart, she knew that kindness was never wasted. Every act of mercy, every moment of compassion, every risk taken for another's life, all of it came back in ways seen and unseen. And that was how a poor widow who helped a blood-feeding December mermaid became the wealthiest and most respected woman in Umora village.